Your sensors are correct. Do not adjust your heading. You've discovered the Omega Particle, streaming to the Alpha Quadrant and beyond. Here's your host, the anchorman of the Federation, the Doctor of Dilithium. This is Jonathan Wiegand.
Welcome to the Omega Particle Podcast. Like the man said, I am your gracious and humble host, Jonathan Wiegand, with half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. And we are set on a course for the Delta Quadrant because we are reviewing To the Journey, looking back at Star Trek Voyager, this long-anticipated documentary that reunites the cast and crew of Voyager. And this crowdfunded project promised a deep dive into making of the series, the drama on the series, everything. And it's finally here. Little backstory if you don't know anything about this project or anything about this crowdfunding thing, or even what crowdfunding is. Back in 2020, they started production on this documentary because there was another Star Trek documentary that came out, and that was for the Deep Space Nine series, and that was called What We Leave Behind, and that was so beautiful. Now, Deep Space Nine is my favorite, but that was just, that was so great. They talked about season 8, what they wanted to do, if they ever could do it. It was just really great. And I'm not going to spoil it because it came out in 2018, which was 7 years ago, which is crazy to think about. And we'll do a light comparison between the docs because I think it's needed. And that one was so well done that the bar for this Voyager documentary was so high, simply because Voyager had so much drama, had so much issues between the cast, so much turnover, so many stakes riding on it. They launched a freaking network with UPN. So this documentary, I was like, we're going to get some like real great interviews, primarily between K. Balgrew, Jerry Ryan. And that's what this was sold as, because in 2020, they're like, hey, we're going to film this on the Star Trek cruise. We're going to get everybody together. It's the 25th anniversary of Voyager, and we're going to rehash it. And that's what I was expecting. And I did not get that. My expectations, they were high, but they were not what this was. Again, I'm not going to get into too much of it here. We're going to navigate the highs and lows of this nostalgic voyage and determine whether or not it was a fitting tribute to this beloved series or if it leaves us longing for more. And I also even want to get into a deep dive into what they refused to put in the documentary and what they didn't really get into, because if you don't know so much about the story, then this documentary will be like, oh, okay, that was it. All right, no big deal. They don't really mention anything of really substance, in my opinion, of the actual drama. Now, if you're a big fan of the podcast, which I hope some of you are, we have, I think it was our 5th or 6th episode, right, Luna? Luna the intern, everybody. It was our 5th or 6th episode that we covered, quote unquote, drama in the Delta Quadrant. And that was, the thing's over 5 years old. And we still get a bunch of downloads on it because people love it. So I'm not going to go word for word and rehash that. But if we have some time at the end of the episode after a review, I will get into it if you're interested into that. And again, I'm not going to go into too much here. Let's get into the review. Luna, let's roll that beautiful bean footage. First off, the documentary opens with that beautiful Voyager theme. And it gets you goosebumps, man. That thing hits, it's hard to compete. It's a great show. And I want to start off this whole review by saying I adore Voyager. Voyager is probably one of my favorite series. It's not my favorite, but it's up there. It's everything about the chemistry between the crew, the complex storytelling, later seasons, and just the goofiness of the show too. And I really love Kate Mulgrew. I really love Jerry Ryan. And I think it's one of the very few Star Trek shows that really does work. And I wish we had so much potential for more, and that I felt like it just got dropped out from us. So I want to say that at the beginning, that I do love Voyager. And I think that's probably why I'm so upset at this documentary, because I wanted more for it. And as a Trekkie, I think that's all we can really ask for, is we want these type of documentaries, because it costs a lot of money to do these. We want these documentaries to be well done. The Indiegogo campaign concluded in March of 2021. It raised over $1.2 million to do this. Now, I know that may not be a lot of money, but in the world of documentary, I don't think that's a ton of money, right, Luna? It may not be. It just seems to me that there was a lot of backing with it. And we didn't, as a backer, I meant so again, like I mentioned at the beginning, if you don't know what a crowdfunding project is, it means they go on Indiegogo and they go, and they post this big spiel to be like, hey, we want to make this movie and we're going to have these different levels. And if you support us monetarily with money, you'll get access to certain things. Producer credits, etc., meet the cast, go to the premiere, whatever. But if you pay I think it was $15-20, maybe $25, you got to get the documentary, which was sweet. I didn't do that with DS9, and I had to wait an extra month or two for it to come out streaming, and it was a pain to find. And I was like, well, I don't want that to happen, so I'm gonna pay the $20 and just have it whenever it comes out. That's why I got quote unquote early access. It's Vimeo. I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's not Venmo. It's Vimeo Video. They sent a link to us in our email, which I didn't even see it. It went to my spam. Only reason I saw it is somebody messaged me and were like, hey, have you watched this? I was like, watched what? And before that, I think the most we ever got was a poster. And it was okay, here's to the journey. And it was this poster, and it was of all these screenshots, and it was cool, but it was that's all I got for 4 years of this thing being in production. So anyway, to start off, just basic stuff. The structure is all over the map. There is no structure. There is no theming to this, should I say. DS9 one, there was. It was kind of a tapestry, and they wove back and forth. This one feels like buckshot, birdshot. It's just random. And it starts off with okay, let's cover Kate Mulgrew. Cool. We'll do Jerry Ryan, and then we'll do Robert Picardo, and then we'll do Harry Kim. Okay, cool. Oh, let's just do, and it was character by character by character. Let's bring in the showrunners and the creators, and then they kind of would do that character's whole spiel. So they was okay, here's the 10 minutes on Robert Duncan McNeil and Tom Paris. Here's the 10-15 minutes with Garrett Wang on Ensign Kim. Okay, and there wasn't any sweet, nice blending. It was just, okay, you get Garrett Wang doing space. He's going to 0G, and that's it. I looked this up, so I was really curious, because I was I would love to do that. I think it's cool where they take you on a 747 jet, and they take you to the top of this peak, this parabola, and then, or bell curve, whatever you want to call it, and then they drop you, and then on the way down, like a roller coaster, you hit 0G. And the people are fans of Voyager, because I'm sure if you work for a 0G company, you're probably going to be a science fiction fan. I feel that's goes with the job, because you have to be some scientist or some type of astro nerd, as they would say. And it's random. Didn't really care for it, to be honest. Again, I played on my phone. I looked it up. It's $7,500, $10,000 after you're pretty close to it after you convert it to USD to do the ride. I'm okay, that's cool. But it was, I would say, that really took you out of it. It didn't really make sense. I think they were just connecting to be something cool. I mean, Ensign Kim didn't get enough screen time as Garrett Wang got on this documentary through the whole show. Like, he was very heavy Garrett Wang, which is fine. He's wonderful, whatever. But overall, the structure was everywhere. The interviews, some of them were just amazing. And we'll get into it, like Ethan Phillips, who plays Neelix, Kate Mulgrew, were just amazing. Some of them were just, like, Chakotay's was just there. You know, it was okay, but it was just there. There was some behind-the-scenes footage. They talked about the first original captain, and that was it. I think Ethan Phillips was amazing. Like, I really didn't know how funny he was in person until I watched this documentary. That was a big takeaway for me. He was very much the comedic relief. Apparently, like he was in the show, Kate Mulgrew described him as this beacon of light that you will never experience without him. And then same thing with Robert Picardo. He had very heartfelt interviews as well. And Kate Mulgrew had a really amazing interview too. And that was because you kind of see a little bit more vulnerability from her. And again, none of the people, I'll say this too, none of the cast and crew on this, I think the way that it was managed was bad. Not that the interviews were terrible. I just think you could tell that there was subjects they didn't want to press in on. And we'll get into that. But one of the really great interviews was with Kate Mulgrew, and she even talks about this, how being a single mother and having children, how she couldn't balance it. And that a lot of times she would get home and the kids are in bed, and that she sacrificed her art, that she would stay up late into the night to always prep, always just be on her game hours worth before she even hit the set the next morning so that she could just be amazing. And that kind of work ethic is incredible. And the fact that she mentions her kids have never seen an episode of Voyager, and they refuse to, because they view this show as something that took their mother away. And that's incredibly vulnerable. Oh my gosh. Like, that was super heartfelt. As a parent, I was like, that is a very difficult decision. That's tough. And I don't think there's a wrong answer to that. Kind of not really talking about Star Trek now, but I don't think there's a wrong answer or a right answer. I think it's up to the woman. If they want to work, if they want to stay home, whatever, it's up to them. Like, cool either way. Yeah, it was just really powerful. And I'm just like, I appreciate that vulnerability, because it just opened up a whole side of her that I had no idea about. And kind of makes me want to read her book. Like, she has a few books out. Like, I think one's about her mom. And then, of course, the biography. I was like, man, this would be really cool. I would love to deep dive into this, because she's a fascinating woman. So I know we kind of talked about some of the highs and some of the lows, but let's get into what really worked for the documentary and what are some other things besides this Kate Mulgrew interview that I really liked. So first up, there are a lot of great emotional moments. Roxanne Dawson, who plays B'Elanna Torres, talked about her transition from actress to director, and now she's like a prominent director. She knows and does a lot of great TV, and I think she's done a few movies as well, right, Luna? And how Voyager paved her way to her doing that. They kind of reference it a few times. I think Garrett Wang does, about how it was like a director's mini camp, that they, like an intern program they had, that if you wanted to direct, you could. Those were great. Those were absolute gold. They talked about the original captain, about how she came in a few times, that she was this. I only remember her from her role in Back to School, which was a Rodney Dangerfield film, and she was like his ex-wife or future ex-wife or something, and that's what I know her from. But she was a very good stage actress and did a lot of great movies and like Academy Award level type of talent, and she just couldn't handle the rigors and the schedule of TV. And she was like, well, normally I would be in a role for 4 or 5 months, 6 months to really chew on it, to go over it. Now, and the words really matter, every word she would kind of pour over. And now you get into these techno-babble scripts where, you know, you're talking about the deflector array and warp bubbles and the Kazon and all this kind of nonsense where it's, I guess you call it nonsense, where it's just techno-babble. And that's beautiful. I love Star Trek. That's just part of the game. You know, you got to learn that quote-unquote language. And she just struggled with that. She could not deal with that type of fast pace and also the work level that is with the series television show. And so she just decided to quit. She's like, it's not going to be for me. I got to go. Bye. And again, I'm just being very short. They brought in Kate Mulgrew, and she read, I think, 1 or 2 times, instantly got the role. And then literally like the next day, she was starting. So the first episode or 2, I think, there's like the caretaker episode. I think the other one, like she was literally, they said, in hair and makeup, trying to get the uniform fit, trying to get the lighting right while they were filming. Like she was just instantly brought in because they lost so much money with this first lady. And it is such, they show some of her acting, and it is just awkward and it's weird. And there's this one story that there was a stagehand, or he may have been a mic guy, or I don't really know the producer level titles or whatever, but he was just like he was a part of the crew, regular guy, part of the crew, and he really loved Star Trek. And so she would ask him, like, consistently, how should I play this scene? What should the captain do? How should I act in this thing? Because she doesn't know Star Trek. She's classically trained, which is perfectly fine. Like, look what Patrick Stewart is. Like, he is probably the best captain, and he is the most classically trained, working with the Royal Shakespeare Company. And plug, if you want to know more about him, I think we have 1 or 2 episodes about Making It So, which is his autobiography. So go and check that out on our Omega Particle history. But so it just didn't work out. And then, of course, they talk a little bit about Jerry Ryan's struggle with the 7 of 9 costume. And again, even with Robert Duncan McNeil, kind of reflecting on his character as basically Nick Locarno. I really enjoyed it. It was great kind of seeing these people after all these years. But if you've kept up with any type of Voyager history, or it wasn't a lot of new stuff that I learned in this documentary. I think the stuff about the first captain and then Mulgrew's children were really the only thing I learned. And that was it. And this documentary was about 2 hours long. And I wouldn't say I'm an expert in Star Trek. I mean, I do have a podcast, but I would say I'm like, okay, if you're just a regular fan, you probably have heard these stories. You know all the spiels, like, okay, Seven's costume was so tight, she couldn't really breathe. Yeah, Captain Proton was a cool thing that they had, and they wanted maybe to do a spinoff, and like stuff like that we already knew. But to me, there was a lot more rough spots than good spots. Like I mentioned before, felt like a collection of random interviews than a cohesive story. It's just kind of like the editing team threw all the footage into a transporter buffer and said, energize, let's put it all together. Another thing, where's the remastered footage? So like other Trek documentaries, like What We Left Behind, we saw stunning DS9 footage that was remastered 4K, and To the Journey didn't give us that at all. Instead, we got these like really grainy, low-res clips that kind of felt like I don't know, like something you would see in a time capsule from 1999. And you didn't, I don't know. I just thought with all this money and time, again, 4 freaking years, you could at least given us 1 or 2 scenes. And unresolved questions, that was a big point of this. They kind of touch on some of Janeway's controversial decisions, but they really don't deep dive into it. They mention her Tuvix issue, like her conundrum, and how it's so funny that people still talk about it, and it, like it's a meme now, and oh, this is so great. But a lot of other things, like, I'll just start this. Like, for example, they mentioned Kes, who's played by Jennifer Lin. And again, there we have a podcast episode about that. Where in the world is Jennifer Lin? And we kind of go into her history and her story, and they don't touch on that at all. They barely mention the controversy. It's just like they brought her in to be like, they brought her into the showrunners and was like, hey, you're really hurting. So, and you're just really hurting, and we can see that. So we just want to make sure you're okay. And that's about it. They don't really talk about anything else. And Ethan Phillips does a good job, because he's like, well, when she was there, she was acting, she was on it, she was great. It's like they're dancing around the issue. And I feel like this is a group of cast members that have basically said, hey, everybody, we are going to have our chemistry and do all these like cruises, and we're going to do all these like events so we can get paid, but let's not rehash anything. Let's not dig into the drama. Let's just call it for what it is and leave it alone. That's what it felt. That's what this whole freaking documentary feels like. Everyone is walking on eggshells and don't want to talk about the stuff. Like, for example, again, Jennifer Lynn, I hope she's doing well in Eastern Tennessee. I hope my research when we did the episode 20-something episodes ago, I hope she's doing well. But they don't talk like, hey, she had a drug problem. She had an abusive history growing up, and she turned to drugs. And they don't really talk about that. They don't talk about how she would forget her lines, was really kind of a damper on the show, was very hostile towards people, really pushed people away, never opened up to anybody on set her entire time there, and how she was just very the odd man out the whole time. And that she was originally brought on to be kind of this quote-unquote sexy figure. Like, she was supposed to be this cute, lovable figure, this Ocampa that people were supposed to be in love with, America's sweetheart type of thing, and it didn't turn out that way. So, and that's why they got rid of her. They weren't like, I feel like this documentary is suggesting, well, she just needed the help that she needed, and we just let her go. And we're like, no, that's not why you let her go. You let her go because she was unprofessional. She didn't show up on time. And just to be blunt, and to be very blunt, she wasn't sexy enough. And the ratings were absolutely tanking. So, a little bit of backstory. UPN was launched on the back of Star Trek Voyager. So the CW, it's called, I think it's the CW now, but the UPN launched with Star Trek Voyager as its main show. And so the first 4 seasons, whatever it was, came through, the ratings were terrible. And so they were looking to cut people. And this provided them Jennifer provided them the easiest person to go to, because, again, if the ratings weren't bad, would she have been cut? I don't think so. I think they would have figured out a way around it. They would have just been like, hey, let's, give you half a season off, take care of what you need to take care of, whether it's rehab, whether it's whatever, and just get your life together and come back. Because I think she had so much untapped potential. She's a very talented actress. She's amazing. I just wish, and she could have been so great, especially that whole Ocampa timeline, and I just feel like there's so much untapped potential with her and her character. So the way it ended and what they did to her was just terrible. Then they brought her back for that revenge episode, which was just weird, in later seasons in Voyager. So I felt like they didn't really want to address the controversy with her. And then they really didn't even want to address the controversy with 7 of 9 and bringing Jerry Ryan in. So for those of you that don't know, Jerry Ryan was brought in because the ratings were bad. And so they needed to cut. They cut Jennifer Lynn, and they brought Jerry Ryan in to boost the ratings, which it absolutely did. She became the golden child of Voyager. Her face was everywhere. It was on billboards. It was on magazine covers. It was absolutely everywhere. And it was all over because it was just pure sex appeal. And the funny thing is that she was brought on for sex appeal, but she actually turns out to be one of the best, well fleshed out characters in all of Star Trek. She's amazing. Like, her in Picard season 3 was just chef's kiss. It was amazing. I hope we get a quote-unquote Star Trek Generations or Star Trek Legends, whatever you want to call it, where she is the captain of the Enterprise. Spoiler alert for that Picard season 3, which came out like 2-3 years ago. Yeah, caught up. That's about time. Come on, catch up. But she's amazing. And same thing with Robert Ricardo. He was an awesome chemistry back and forth with her. Either way, they brought her on, and what I hated was that this documentary, they kind of excused everybody's terrible attitude, to be blunt. The showrunners, creators, the producers, the cast, everyone's like, well, you would be mad too if you were the captain, like Mulgrew was, and they brought somebody on. You can't have a pulse without feeling some resentment. And I was like, look, that's excusing terrible behavior. That's not cool. According to Jerry Ryan, Kate Mulgrew was an absolute jerk to her. Like, she would have mental breakdowns if she knew she was doing a scene with Mulgrew that day or whatever. Like, it was terrible for her. And again, I'm not saying I love Voyager. I'm not saying anybody's the bad guy. I'm not saying anybody. This is just what people have said. These are just what the facts are. This is what Jerry Ryan has said, multiple interviews throughout the years. Please don't think I'm just like pooping on Kate Mulgrew. I love Kate Mulgrew. She's great. But I will just say, let's not excuse bad behavior. It's bad behavior. She was terrible. Let's not write it off. And then I was hoping for this amazing, wonderful, hey, let's sit down and hash it out on camera. To be like, I was threatened when you were brought in. Felt like you were taking my show away. And she was like, I understand that. That wasn't my intention. I'm sorry if they did that. And if you've watched Voyager, seasons 4 through 7, it's literally, like, in my opinion, the Dr. 7 show. It's just, they get so much of the episodes, they get so much of the stuff. And before, it was like everybody, you know how Star Trek does, every character, kind of goes through the rounds and has their quote-unquote episode and a little deep dive and kind of expound on them a little bit. But I feel like once 7's brought in, they really just focus on her so much and her development. And that's why she's one of the best characters, is because she gets so much attention. Same thing with the Doctor. He's amazing and great. Oh, really fun fact. If you didn't know this, that the Doctor actually auditioned for Neelix. And he didn't get it because he read Neelix and was like, oh, this is bigger character, main character. Those are Robert Picardo's words on the documentary. And he's like, I would love to do that instead. He didn't get Neelix because Ethan Phillips is amazing. So he was like, they're like, why don't you just read for the Doctor? And they got the Doctor and everything's good. And again, I was expecting this great come to Jesus moment where they kind of just like talk about it and just upfront with it between the both of them. Be like, yeah, I was a jerk. Okay. We don't get any of that. I think the only thing we get is that somebody, I forget who exactly. Do we know, Luna? Okay, I didn't have that in my notes either. Is that somebody random, I think it was like Robert Duncan McNeil, maybe it was Robert Picardo, says that Jerry Ryan told him, oh my God, Kate apologized to me. And that's all we get. We don't get any kind of resolution. We don't get any type of closure to this huge drama. It's just, it is what it is. And again, no one really wants to talk about it. And they even bring up the fact, so that's probably my biggest issue with the whole documentary, is that we knew there was this animosity between Mulgrew and Ryan. And it went for decades after the show. This isn't like a new thing. It went for a long time. And I feel like the only reason it was resolved was because they were going to be on panels and cruises and whatever, and they needed to make money, so let's just play nice so we all can get paid, which I completely understand. I would do that in 100 times, in a freaking heartbeat, of course. If somebody was going to pay me a lot of money to go be on a panel with one of my exes, I would of course do that. I would let's make up for the sake of making money. Of course, anybody would. Only reason I say one of my exes because I don't think if I have animosity with anybody in the real world besides a group of 4 or 5 people. But anyway, not here or the time. Another big issue I have is they really get and dig deep into Garrett Wang's partying and kind of Playboy style, I guess, lifestyle he had. And he was late 2 or 3 times, and how they were upset with him and they were going to fire him, and then they brought him in and said, hey, you're going to straighten up and fly right, and if you don't, we're going to get rid of you. And I know this story has kind of been debunked by Garrett Wang, and they're like, the only reason he was saved was because he was on people's like sexiest of the year or whatever. So they're like, oh, we can't fire him now because he's, super popular and people love him. And I know the showrunners, creators, and Garrett Wang all deny that, but I'll just be blunt. That's the truth. The ratings were so terrible. They had to bring a woman in a skin-tight, like, leotard to boost the ratings. They were going to keep somebody that was on the sexiest people in Hollywood. They're going to do that. So it's like, okay, we're going to bring in and completely, like, dehumanize a woman. Yeah, we'll do that. But he's the sexiest, young guy in Hollywood. No, we're going to cut him. No, they're going to keep him. And I feel like this story of, like, his parting ways is just kind of nonsense. I was like, yeah, I've never bought it. Never will buy it. It's a business. They need to get viewers, plain and simple. Especially that demographic, because I'll be honest, there's not a lot of young girls that watch Star Trek. I wish there was. And they really do a cool part of the documentary. I would say one of the good things about the documentary is they talk about how there's maybe like 5 to 10 minutes about how women are inspired by Captain Janeway and how they go into STEM areas and they're surgeons or doctors or astronauts even. And there's an amazing interview with the Italian astronaut, and they talk about how Janeway, she looked up to Janeway, and I was like, this is really cool. So I was like, that was an awesome documentary, like awesome part of it. And but yeah, I understand, like, again, not too many young women watch it, and so I feel like they wanted to keep Garrett Wang on to kind of help in that demographic. But I could be wrong. What do I know? I'm just an accountant from the East Coast of the United States. So I don't know anything about TV or how it's run. I just have a podcast. So I 100% could be wrong. And that's okay. Speaking of really good things, I kind of went ahead a little bit. Sorry, all the production team in my notes talking about the STEM and the girls with Captain Janeway inspiration. But there were a lot of great things they did with fan service. There's a lot of cool shout outs. There's a lot of nods to iconic episodes like Year of Hell or Scorpion. And there's a lot of loving tributes to some actors who've passed away. And I think the Voyager family vibe is still strong. I think they're very good. But they've made peace. But they definitely don't want to talk about what has happened in the past. So, perfect example of it, and I won't bring any more drama up, is Robert Beltran, who plays Chakotay. Everybody knew that Robert Beltran was unhappy. He wanted off Voyager so much. He requested it so many times that they offered him a love, spoiler alert, they offered him a love plot with Seven to keep him on for season 7. And so that's how they sold him to be like, hey, come on. And from all my research and notes, that's what made him stay, because he was upset. He's like, I'm not, getting any time now. I was second in command. I was technically the leading man on the show, and I just feel I'm getting passed over, and I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go do other stuff. And that kind of resonates. 7 seasons is a really long time, but they don't talk about that. And I think the most he mentions it, he goes, well, I was unhappy. I was like, what the heck, man? Like, again, that family let's just leave it alone. Let's not get into it. But either way, a lot of really cool things they've done is that you can definitely tell they've made peace. They do a lot of panels together now, and it's really awesome. And I'm really happy for them, and I think that's great. The very last thing they do well is that they look at the Voyager's legacy, and they look at how it paved the way for such an increase in STEM for girls and for women. I think that's fantastic. And they bring in all these examples of like these super impressive people that are like, Captain Janeway was my inspiration. And now you have, and it's such a strong, and I didn't realize this until, thinking about it and watching the documentary, like it's such a strong female show. And I like strong women, so maybe that's why it's such a good, and I have like on a subconscious level, man, that's why I like it. Like I like strong women because you have Chief Engineer B'Elanna Torres, you have the Captain Janeway, and then you have 7 of 9, and then you have Kessina, who's before, and you have all of these great, strong women, like leading women in it. And I'm so happy it's an inspiration, because I think it's in that time in the 90s, it crazy to think about, but in the time when it was the first female captain, it was kind of controversial. It was kind of like, oh my gosh, they're doing that. And I'm so happy that now we don't even think about it. We're like, oh yeah, female, of course. Yeah. Ladies, in the words of Danny Trejo in Anchorman, the ladies can do stuff now. And I think that's really awesome that, yeah, we've come that far. Still have a long way to go, but we've definitely made progress, I think, since the 90s. And I'm super excited for, well, at the time I wrote this, Prodigy was hopefully getting picked up for season 3, but it turns out Netflix doesn't want it, and now they're going to have to like shop around again for season 3. But I was going to say, like, I was really excited to see how they do Captain Janeway's character and like expand her character even in Prodigy. And because I think that's still inspiring young women today. I think that's fantastic. But hopefully somebody will pick up Prodigy at some point, but we'll see. So in closing, I know I've rambled a lot. It's, again, a passion. I love Voyager, and I wanted this documentary to be a lot of things, and it gave me a lot of heartfelt, great moments. And I know a lot of you are asking, did it reach its intended destination, or did it get lost in the Delta Quadrant? And it's a mixed bag, to be honest. For diehard Voyager fans like myself, it was a fun walk down memory lane. The structure is really just all over the place. There's no remastered footage. That's a missed opportunity. They don't really deep dive into anything. I still thoroughly enjoyed it. I'll say that. It was still fun to see, especially the interviews with Robert Picard and Ethan Phillips, just like bantering back and forth. And it was just cool. Like, I just like watching it. It was good. Like, so I wouldn't say, like, if you're a fan of Voyager, please watch it. But if you're looking for these serious deep dives and juicy behind the scenes drama, you might get a few nuggets here or there, but it's not as much as we hoped. And don't expect, if you've seen the DS9 documentary, What We Leave Behind, don't expect that level of depth or polish. It's worth a watch, for sure, but it's not to that level. And I think Voyager always deserves more love, and I think so does this documentary, but it wasn't a threshold, quote-unquote, rewatch level bad, but I would still maybe give it 3 out of 5. I don't know. It just wasn't what I wanted, but it was still good to walk down memory lane. So that has been our review of To the Journey, and thank you so much for listening. It's been great talking with you guys. And Luna, let's wrap it up. So what did you think of To the Journey? Did it live up to your expectations? Did you feel like it was a missed opportunity? Did pacing and structure really get to you or take you out of it? So if it was, or whatever your opinion is, please hit us up on socials. We're everywhere at Omega Particle Podcast. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're everywhere. So please feel free to reach out to us. Love hearing from you guys. And let me know what you'll think about it, and what do you think about what I think. If you're like, Jonathan, I think you're absolutely right, or you don't know anything you're talking about, you're a douchebag. Yeah, please let me know, because I always love hearing from you guys. And again, we're going to have another great DS9 review coming out later this week, so be on the lookout for that as we continue our march through season 1. And again, remember, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, your loved ones, your friends, coworkers, whomever. You never know what people are dealing with or whatever they're struggling with. So just keep that in mind. Practice a little kindness, practice a little tolerance and mercy. And as always, keep those phasers set to stun, and your coffee's black as Janeway's soul. Oh, damn. Who wrote that line? Can't we just say coffee is black as Janeway would like it? Jeez, Luna. Either way, second star to the right, straight up till morning.